Good morning. So, let's talk about trust, and more specifically, trust in software. So, what do I mean about trust in software? Well, in case you didn't know this, a large amount of the technology that we use today is flawed. Flawed in the sense that there are security exploits and that there are different people on the web and in this world who use their, let's say, they're just regular people who have the idea in their head that, hey, it would be so hilarious if I can break into the system or whatever, and most of us would probably call them hackers. Now, the thing is, when it comes to software, that this is actually not the only thing that you are trusting in essence. When you use, for example, you may or may not have heard this, when you use a service or you give people your personal information, you are trusting that organization to be, secure about what they're doing with that information. You're trusting them to treat your information with a certain degree of respect. Now, Google and Facebook, and there's been enough scandals that you should probably by now, kind of like, that smoking is bad for you. You should be aware of that your personal information is being sold to the highest bidder on the web, for the most part. And if it's not being sold, it is being used to provide you, or rather provide the organization that uses this information for different purposes. It's not just nefarious purposes either. I'm not saying that it's all bad, but they are using it in order to somehow make money off it. Now, it can be anything from, let's say, figuring out what you like. Take Google or Amazon or so forth. What they use it for, in many cases, is to figure out what will get you to click a certain ad, or what products to market to you, and so forth and so forth. It's personalized content. All of that is being provided through, your personal information by tracking your interactions with the web. Now, for some of you this may come as a shock, and for some of you this is kind of like, yeah, Fredrik, of course, what is your point? Well, my point is that almost everything you do on your computer is built on a trust. What do I mean by trust? Well, I mean that you are trusting your computer system to work in a certain fashion. And the truth of the matter is that most of the systems that you use are in theory capable of more or less fucking up your entire life. Like, quite literally, if any of the organizations that you are giving away your personal information to wanted to, they could at any moment pretty much do really bad stuff. Like, they could impersonate you, steal your identity. Like, you're talking about identity theft. Google could impersonate you tomorrow and you would have almost no way of stopping them. Now, I'm not saying that they would, and they're not going to, and this is not a video about scaring people, but I'm saying that there is a large amount of trust in software development, and I kind of wanted to just point out that if you think about it, because I think we get really caught up in the discussion of security, and really, honestly, from my perspective, the only time you really care about it is when there's a scandal. Most of the time you don't even, I'm pretty sure that even before this, you didn't really think so much about, your personalized information. I mean, when the large corporations such as Facebook and Google were in the media a while back for, storing information and knowing everything about you, a few people kind of went, what? Are they doing that? But most people are happy to give away their personal information for the benefit of having free software. So we're gladly selling our personal data in favor of having, access to these services that they are so graciously giving us for free. Now, I think that that's kind of like, and this is kind of where I'm going with this. It's that happens as long as they are using it in a way that doesn't affect you directly, because you don't see the way it affects your life. It's not affecting you directly. We humans are really bad at seeing correlations between things that are happening at in theory, and things, you know, we kind of need things to happen to us. We kind of need things to feel real. I usually say, like, if the Red Cross wants people to help starving children, get a bunch of starving children and put a dying child in people's hands. Trust me, they are going to donate a lot more than if you're just putting an ad on the television. That's how we work. Now, that being said, that doesn't actually mean that there aren't really any consequences to this type of behavior. It's just very subtle and you're not really noticing it. But I'm not trying to say that, yeah, you shouldn't be using computers and you should be more careful and so forth. I kind of want to point out, like, it's not really a positive thing, but I think it's kind of cool that so many of the technologies we're using, and like all of this information that we have stored on the internet, is actually, yes, some of it, I'm not going to lie, a lot of it is aimed towards marketing. It is aimed towards getting you to purchase something, but it's also aimed towards understanding you at a personal level. And that trust, I think that's pretty cool. If you think about it, figuring out what makes you click an ad, or figuring out what the ideal products are for you to consume. Some of you may say that, yeah, that's just a business trying to make more money. And yeah, maybe it is. But it's also something much more interesting. Like, some people will say that they don't like the idea of, Big Brother sees you and big data and trying to figure out things. And there are so many nefarious reasons for why this could be really, really bad. And I say, yeah, it is true that you could do something absolutely horrible, that, let's say that your wearable that can monitor, at one point they will get more and more, at some point they will get so advanced that they can actually track things at a genetic level. And, imagine being overlooked or never being insured because, they have data from so long that they can see that that you have most likely going to get a heart defect or something like that, that you can be systematically excluded from services. That is a theoretical possibility. But on the flip side, imagine how much that we as a species are going to learn about ourselves through having all of this information. And if you consider how much good has come from starting to try and understand, I mean, my industry, like the programmers and like the designers and so forth, we all now look at, it's a very popular trend called being data-driven. And being data-driven doesn't mean that where we are, quite literally, every single application you're using, for the most part, is tracking your interactions across the application. And we're not doing that because we want to figure out how to scam you. We are doing that because we want to figure out how you like to interact with the system so that we can use it to make it better. And this is where the trust comes in. There are absolutely companies in the world who will use this information that you're giving away for bad reasons. But there's also the people like myself and others that I work with who really only want to understand you so that we can make things better for you. Because trust me, we have tried asking you guys, like all the consumers of our product, and asking isn't as good as just watching you use the system. We want to see how you actually use it, not how you tell us, because telling us isn't as good as seeing what you actually do. Words are never as good as action when it comes to figuring out how people actually behave. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that just because there are people in the world who are using your personal information for bad reasons, there's actually people who are just using it to make your life a little bit easier.